Hello, my name is Dr. Mary Shannon. I'm a senior lecturer here in the Department of English and Creative Writing at the University of Roehampton. The current research that I'm working on is thinking about the idea of the meme, in part. So a meme being an idea that spreads, replicates, reproduces, changes, develops as it passes between people. We talk about memes a lot, don't we, when we talk about the internet and internet culture. And I'm interested in thinking about this idea in relation to 19th century popular culture, because that's my area of expertise. Now, other people have thought about the meme in great detail. So the idea was first put forward actually by Richard Dawkins in his book, The Selfish Gene. And then it was further developed by a lady called Susan Blackmore in her book, The Meme Machine. And several critics have thought about it in relation to particularly early modern culture, actually, so Shakespeare's day. But as I say, I'm interested in the 19th century, so the late Romantic period, early Victorian period. And the reason I'm interested in the idea of the meme is actually because I'm working on a book about a chap called Billy Waters, who was a really famous person in his day, but now is forgotten about. He was an African-American busker in London on the Strand. And so just like we would see buskers around London today, that was what he did. He sang, he danced, he played his fiddle. And he did this because he was invalided out of the Navy and he didn't have enough money to live. Now, the reason I find him fascinating is precisely because he became famous. He was a well-known figure in London. He was written about. He was turned into various pictures, popular prints, but also he became represented in an illustration to a really popular book. This book was called Life in London. And this book was a mega craze. I mean, I can't emphasize how popular it was. You could get Life in London tea towels, Life in London handkerchiefs, Life in London everything, pictures, memorabilia, you name it. And Billy Waters was represented in an illustration to this book, a book which was published in serial editions, not as one big text, published in little bite-sized chunks. One of these, the illustrations, had Billy Waters in his distinctive costume, playing away in the background of a scene. And because of this, he then got turned into a character in a hit play. So he had a speaking part, or rather, the character, Billy Waters, had a speaking part. So this was at the Adelphi Theatre. It was a huge hit, massive hit. Got played, versions of the play got played in America, Dublin, really, really popular. And so his image got transferred and reproduced and copied. The costume for the play was faithfully reproduced, it says in the play text, faithfully reproduced from the original illustrations. And he became famous, really, I suppose, despite himself. I'd like to think that he had a certain amount of agency in this process. But it ends up as quite a sad story, because even though the producers of the play made an awful lot of money out of the play and ultimately the key scenes in which Waters is a character, Waters didn't make any money at all. In fact, the story goes that he had to, because he was being represented on stage, not in a positive light, I should say, but as somebody who was faking being deserving of charity, somebody who was not a real beggar, somebody who was in fact laughing at the people who gave him money. Because he was represented on stage this way, the story goes that people stopped actually helping him out, giving him money in real life. So his real historical body suffered because his fictionalized body was being represented on stage, represented in pictures, being spread through various different types of popular media. And the real horrible irony is, in order to get into the hit play at the Adelphi Theatre on the Strand when it first came out, the audience had to walk past actual Billy Waters doing his actual performance outside the theatre. So they had to ignore him and go in and watch the stage character. Now, I find it really fascinating, this story. I mean, obviously it's very melodramatic. The extent to which that cause and effect is true is up for debate. But I find it fascinating the way in which a real historical person becomes a fictional character. The way it reveals the way cultural power works, you know, that he was so marginalized and suffering by the end, despite his pictorial fame. But also I wonder, what were people buying into when they bought images of Billy Waters? How do popular characters become so well known and so ubiquitous, circulating everywhere? What makes a character, whether they're based on a real person or not, become just a word-of-mouth hit and an actual hit? And how do these kinds of tropes and images and indeed stereotypes, like Paul Waters being depicted as a deceitful beggar, how do these memes, if you want to call them, circulate and spread? So I'm very interested in the circulation of popular culture in the 19th century. I'm looking at the period between 1800 and 1860. But I'm hoping it will also give me thoughts into how popular culture works today and how ideas circulate and develop and change, and what insights it can give us into our own culture.